of the Syrian Arab Army eliminate a number of ISIL terrorists in the eastern countryside of Homs. 20 countries meet in London to discuss ways of combating ISIL terrorist groups. In Iraq, the army liberates al-Khasfa area in al-Anbar province, killing dozens of terrorists. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Irado Krikorian from the News Center in Damascus. A large number of terrorists have been killed and their heavy machine gun-equipped vehicles were destroyed by Syrian Arab Army units in the villages of Anq al-Hawa, Rahum and Rujm al-Qasr in Homs' eastern suburbs. The Syrian Arab Army also repelled a terrorist attack on Qurmus village in Homs' countryside. A meeting comprising officials and ministers from 20 countries taking part in the so-called International Alliance to Fight ISIL, as well as UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and British Prime Minister David Cameron, is due to be held in London to discuss ways of unifying efforts in the face of ISIL. Discussion is also expected to cover the course of the ongoing military operations against the terrorist organization, which have so far achieved nothing practically on the ground since the beginning of the strikes more than 6 months ago. The London meeting, according to observers, is not expected to yield fruitful results unless it puts an end to the terrorist infiltration into Syria and Iraq and maintains a mechanism of cooperation with both countries in order to eliminate terrorism, dry up its sources and cut off the means of strategic communication with the terrorist organizations. Now that the West has started to suffer from the terrorism it already created and financed in Syria and Iraq, the Austrian authorities are reportedly intent to refer to trial before a criminal court the first Chechen terrorist on the charge of taking part in terrorist operations in Syria after he had been captured north of Austria last September following his return from Syria, where he took part in terrorist activities within ISIL ranks. Meanwhile, the Austrian government has decided to allocate a special budget to fund the appointment of more experts and security men within the framework of a preventive anti-terror plan. Experts in Vienna have warned that individual terrorist attacks would spare no European country and that it takes further cooperation and social awareness to confront this plight. A source at the French Defense Ministry stressed that 10 former French army personnel had joined the jihadi networks in Syria and Iraq, expressing anxiety over the dangers of extremism inside the French army. Associated France Press pointed out that part of the information published by RFB Radio and L'Opinion newspaper showed increasing worries about the spread of extremism inside the military establishment. French Defense Minister confirmed that those former French soldiers had actually participated in combat missions inside Iraq and Syria. Welcome back. Security sources close to the Lebanese Al-Akhbar Daily have disclosed that 11 terrorists have been so far held from the twin terrorist explosions in Jabal Mohsen in Tripoli, and the explosive belts in their possession have been seized. The sources added that an ISIL-linked Lebanese suicide bomber had entered Lebanon coming from Turkey, assigned the task of carrying out a suicide operation. The sources added that the terrorist had been held in custody in Turkey before he went out in a swap deal between Ankara and ISIL intended to release the Turkish diplomats whom the terrorist organization had held after entering Mosul. According to the investigation held into the twin blasts in Jabal Mohsen, security men are currently looking for the person who played a major role in the operation and was well informed of all the details. The sources added that he was the last person to meet the two suicide bombers, Taha al-Khayyal and Bilal Marayan, the executors of the blasts. In Iraq, the Iraqi army has liberated al-Khasfa district in al-Anbar, killing scores of ISIL terrorists, including one of their leaders nicknamed Abu Anas. The army also dismantled explosive devices planted in streets and houses. The army has meanwhile continued its operations to clear the area west of al-Haditha in al-Anbar, declaring that its full liberation would be announced shortly. Finally, this situation in Yemen began to witness relative stability following a presidential statement about reaching an agreement after intense discussions and meetings with the Yemeni President Abd Rabbo Mansour Hadi and his counselors. The presidential statement pointed out that the meetings focused on finding ways to improve the situation on the ground, especially reactivating the state's institutions. The parties agreed to withdraw people's committees from their positions near the presidential palace. With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Karun Kürkcan, but after a short break.
Good afternoon. Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi checked on some of the fuel stations, bakeries and consumer institutions and punished all law breakers from owners of the station and the bus drivers. The Central Bank of Syria announced its intention to allocate $65 million to sell them in the market for both commercial and non-commercial purposes on February, as the bank's mechanism was to intervene in non-traditional foreign exchange markets. Dr. Adib Mayala pointed that the bank is determined to continue its policy, which aims to expand the market's needs through the banks and the exchange institutions. Oil traded below $50 a barrel in London for a third day, as investors awaited a European Central Bank decision on starting a new easing program. Brent futures fell as much as 1.1%. Meanwhile, the dollar approached an 11-year high against the euro, undermining the appeal of dollar-priced commodities for protecting against inflation, amid speculation that the European Central Bank will introduce large-scale bond purchases today. Oil also declined on estimates that U.S. crude inventories expanded for a second week. European stocks halted a four-day rally that took them to a 7-year high. U.S. index futures were little changed, while the European stocks slipped 0.1% to reach 355.58 in London. Investors who saw little value in the metal last month have started buying this January, as the drop of the energy cost curbed inflation, although crude continues to tumble. Bullion is off to its best start this year since 1980, while West Texas Intermediate is trading near the lowest since April 2009. The correlation between the two commodities that reached a 16-month high in December is now the weakest for 5 months. The euro swung against the dollar as investors weighed the scale and formed an anticipated debt purchases that may be announced Thursday by the European Central Bank. At the same time, the euro was little changed at $1.1615 after early rising as much as 0.2% and falling 0.3%. It slipped to $1.1460 on the 16th of this month, which makes it the weakest level since November 2003. The shared currency fell 0.2% to 136.74 yen. while the dollar weakened 0.2% to 117.73 yen. Ladies and gentlemen, with this reached the end of our news. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.